Hello, Honors Language Arts students. This video will go over all of the work that you've been doing over the past 4 weeks that contribute to creating your idea for your project-based learning assignment. So first, we started off with the homepage, and I want to make you aware that every week I add to this homepage so that if you miss anything, you can go back and find your process on the homepage. So all you have to do is just click it, and then from there it'll take you to any of these resources that you'll see me go through, unless you want to go through the modules. So this is just a quick resource page. So we began by writing a poem. You answered our three main questions. And our entire project-based learning focuses on these three essential questions. You're going to hear me mention these often, and so I want to highlight them. So our first step was to create a poem that answered this question directly. How does where I live impact and influence who and what I can become? So we started off at this point, creating a poem. And this Where I Am From poem was our launching point. You also heard from other people's perspectives. We had guest speakers, and you listened to their geography, where they lived, and then they answered that main question directly. Uh, I just want to make you aware that you can use this poem for many different purposes throughout this PBL assignment. It can be to inspire yourself or get ideas. Like, for example, there's something in here about parenting, the common phrases you hear when you're at your house. You could choose to have parenting be a topic that you research, or maybe your parents, uh, their history or who they are as a person. You also wrote things in here about your neighborhood, plants in your neighborhood, your actual house. There's also one about two food items. Possibly your PBL has to do with uh, two food items that your family has, as long as you're answering our big question, which is where I am from. Okay, from there, we did a Flipgrid where you answered some questions and you envisioned what your future will look like and your impact on the future. Within those questions that were in that Flipgrid, you got to express what you want the world to look like as you create it. You can change the future and you can change it right now. From there, we annotated and read an untold story of a real person from the pandemic. This answered the essential question: how does reading and writing make sense of a changing world? Each person explained how their world changed before COVID 19 and after COVID 19. I use these texts on purpose because it provides us with a universal experience. The COVID 19 pandemic is something we have all experienced. And so it gave us a good context of a before and after. And it also provided us with the idea of a problem and a solution. So by working through Bloom's taxonomy in this assignment, you went ahead and you first started your initial process of thinking, which was what we're going to be doing every single week. And that is engaging in remembering information, understanding that information, applying it to your PBL project, and then creating, evaluating, and analyzing all of the information that you receive in order to really focus on this part, creating your PBL project. And so that's where we go to next. The curiosity guide. And this curiosity guide, which is found in the module in 4.1, is our anchor point for anything PBL. So in this curiosity guide, you chose one item of your interest from any of these topics. And now I want you to see how some of these things can come together. So let's say, for example, you chose in your Where I Am From poem to really think about your neighborhood. You got curious about where you live. And then you started to get even more curious about literally where are you from? What house are you in? And so you wanted to look at some of these resources about different houses and how, like, why do we live in suburbs? Why are there not enough grocery stores? Or maybe in your Where I'm From poem, you recalled a dish that your ancestors make. And that's something that's really impacted you. And so you got curious and you started to think Okay, so who was here first? And you looked through some of these resources of possibly maybe your dish was influenced by your heritage and where you're from. Maybe in this poem, you also wrote something about flowers or nature, and you go to this resource and you begin to look at these before and after pictures. Like, for example, this one about more trash days and how to make the world cleaner, solutions that have already been thought of. And so, this anchor point and this curiosity guide really gives you the opportunity to choose something that's of your interest and get curious about it. Connect it back to all of the work that you've already done and all the thinking that you've already done in your Where I Am From poem, in your your impact on the future, the story that you read about somebody else and their experience, and your own experience throughout this pandemic. And then that leads us to our next step. And so for me, I'm going to go ahead and model this for you so you can see how my process got me to coming up with the idea that I want for my PBL assignment. And so I came down here and I selected Brittany Howard. She's and I watched this video about Brittany Howard. As I watched the video, I completed the assignment, which was a ready, set, go, whoa. And I completed this assignment and I really focused on this part, my whoa. These are all of the items that I didn't know before I listened to Brittany Howard's story. And so all of these were something I could connect with. So I looked for a connection. How can I connect myself back to this information that we got curious about? So that would be your guiding question. And so for me, I was really connected with the moment in her life because it matched my own experience. She spoke about having a family member with cancer. She also spoke about the impact of music on her life. And I directly wanted to pull specifically from this quote where she said, "It just felt like a story that needed to be told." That inspired me to continue to look at her story. And this specific quote, "I've been blessed to have a knowledge of empathy." And so this assignment directly impacts how does my own experience impact the future? So how does Matt Vigil, me, how does my experience impact what happens next? I'm learning from Brittany Howard. You're learning from the resource in a curiosity guide. And then you ask yourself that question: how does my own experience impact the future? Brittany Howard is somebody who has a strong, blessed knowledge of empathy. That impacts me because I want to be the same way. I stated that over here in this assignment. What's my impact on the future? Brittany Howard says that she just wants stories to be told. That influences and impacts me because I also said that in what's my impact on the future. I want people to be able to tell their stories. That's kind of the school that I would want to create, which is a question in those questions for the Flipgrid. And so that brought me to the point where I was able to complete this assignment in Module 4. So for 4.2, this is our planning guide. You'll notice our 3 essential questions are up here at the top. And of course, our main question is, where am I from? So all of my ideas and all of my curiosity get me to the point where I am now going to begin planning my project-based learning assignment. And so this is an assignment that I'm going to give myself so that for the next 3 weeks, I can complete this assignment. And for me, I'm going to model what this looks like for you in my thinking and my actions. So you'll notice that my planning map is already filled out. So let me explain how I got there. So I started to look for similarities, and there were similarities between Brittany Howard's experience, my own experience, and Gabriel Mendez's experience. So Brittany Howard said that she was marginalized in her neighborhood. Now remember, that answers the question, which is right here. How does where I live impact where I am and who I can become? Gabriel Mendez in the reading experienced discrimination at his work. And so that got me to thinking about you guys and me wanting to make the world a better place and my own experience in the future. And then lastly, how do reading and writing help me make sense of a changing world? I love to read, I love to write, and I also love music, just the same way that Brittany Howard did. Gabriel Mendez explains in his that he was telling his story to other people and how helpful it was. And so I started to look for similarities. So if you're stuck on this part, focus on similarities between the curiosity guide information, you, and the 3 questions. From there, my next step was I began to think about my project based learning assignment that I want to give myself. And so, my idea, so I started to think about this part: mental health access to mindful practice in my neighborhood. My project is to create QR codes and mindful exercises that pair and connect with music, like a soundtrack on a cardstock but laminated. That's my idea, and I got it from Brittany Howard because her sister gave her the gift of music. And I also recognized that had this been something that Gabriel Mendez had in his neighborhood, maybe he wouldn't have felt as depressed like he explained in his writing. And so that's my project. That's my assignment for the next 2.5 weeks. So here's what I'm going to do. Uh, this is my action steps. So I'm going to invite my neighborhood representative from the local publication. My neighborhood every 2 weeks publishes a newsletter. On March 2nd, she and I are going to meet over Zoom, and we're going to meet, and I'm going to present her with my idea. And so I went through this guide, and here's the technology that I'm going to need. This connects back to notice how the arrow goes there. This connects back to my project. This is the other materials that I'm going to need in order to meet with this person. And then my next step is going to be, who do I need to ask for permission? And you'll see that over here on this side, I made a comment in Cami. For this project, I'm going to need something to make QR codes. And so I just labeled it right there on my guide. So that's how that 4.2 assignment impacts you, because it sets you up to present for your authentic audience. All right, and our last step, which is this week. This week, we are completing an idea reflection. So this is where you get all of the ideas that are in your head, or that main idea that's in your head, and you just put it on paper. You just put it on the screen. Just get it out. And so you'll see my 3 guiding questions. From there, you'll see I'm engaging in our learning protocol for this quarter, which is go, gather, group, and granulate. And so this walks you through step by step. By the time you're finished with this guide, you should have brainstormed your ideas, gathered the perspectives and opinions of other people, planned how you use the information that you research, because remember, the bulk of your grade is based on your annotations and research. And then you begin to investigate by researching and annotating and evaluating that information. And so this guide, this last idea guide, should be the last brain dump before we begin looking at information. So just to give you an overview, my idea is to create QR codes that have music and mindfulness messages and put them in my park by my house. And so this walks you through my process. I had to write down everything that I need. I'm going to post this in the module so you can see it as well if you want to use it to help you guide you.